The derecho that struck Springfield is like a hurricane on land, as Springfield Mayor Misty Buscher characterized it, snapping power poles all over town, and we even heard it compared to even being worse than an ice storm that happened in the late 70s, and definitely worse than the 2006 tornado that was isolated to some parts of Springfield. But what we saw the Thursday before last was complete devastation. I don't know if there's really any other way that we can characterize it, but to talk about the efforts that were made and how now there's only, 13 people on the city water, light, and power outage map that are out of power. Doug Brown joins us. He is the chief utilities engineer. Doug, thanks for taking time. Holy cow, you guys have been busy. And tell us about the efforts that were made to get from 40,000 customers out of power down to now, 13 out of power?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's there's just so much really don't almost even talk about. And you're right. Basically, we've had tornadoes and ice storms, and this was like a hurricane. It took out so much infrastructure across the city, unlike anything we've ever seen. So the first thing on that Thursday when the storm happened was focusing really on public safety, clearing the roads from down power lines, making it safe to travel, then focusing on, medical facilities, those important things. And then really start looking at the circuits that we can return with the largest customers and include like nursing homes, grocery stores, those things that are essential, to the community. But within that first 48 hours, we had returned 30,000 of our customers. And then, we just had to stay with that plan of focusing on the largest amount of customers we can return at one time, but also to make things a little bit more efficient. We try to coordinate things by quadrant, because we didn't want crews, transversing the city, constantly like that. But yeah, you're right. There's 13 customers still out right now, but those are all the businesses on Dirks. So those should be returning by tomorrow, possibly tonight, if everything goes perfect. But there's just a lot of coordination that has to go on with those businesses to get them back on once we're finished. So, but the coordination effort, that if you look back, that Thursday, basically putting the emergency response in action right away. We used our employees, contractors, then we started contacting other utilities through mutual aid. So we tripled our workforce. We had brought in 175 additional personnel and 160 trucks, and basically crews from across the country. So it was a Herculean effort by these guys.
We're talking with Doug Brown, the chief engineer for City Water, Light, and Power, the city of Springfield's municipally owned power generation facility, and all of the efforts that were done, not just with CWLP employees, but also crews from as far away as New Jersey. One thing that, Doug, obviously there was a state of emergency in place, still is until the next city council meeting, and that was really to allow for the mayor to expend funds over a certain threshold without having to go to the city council. Just for context, how much are power poles? How much are these transmission poles when it comes to having to get those things? Number. Yeah, sure.
We're probably looking at about $20 million in damages just for the utility.
Wow.
We replaced over 1,000 pieces of equipment of poles, cross arms, switches, fuses, transformers, thousands and thousands of feet of wire. It was a lot. So the price tags, you throw in like public works, police and fire, their expenses, it's going to be a lot, for our city. But I think the mayor's been working with the county, IEMA, the governor's office, other state agencies, and trying to basically get FEMA coverage, for these costs. So I think that we'll hit those numbers, unfortunately. But and
I just want to give people kind of even more context there. If there's an isolated tornado that strikes through a residential area, you might get several $1 million worth of damage, and that doesn't reach the statewide threshold of getting to 22.7 million. I believe that's what the threshold is. But you're saying that just for CWLP, when it comes to the costs for equipment and utility poles and all the electrical stuff that goes involved in that, and then also the labor involved and the contracting involved, it's already at $20 million?
Yeah, I would say it's going to be around there. It's kind of hard. We don't have final numbers or anything. We're basing it on some of basically all the contracts that we've had to issue out. So, if we max things out, that's where we're going to be. So it could come in a little bit less than that, but it could also come in more, as we get more things. We're not done yet either. We still have other repairs that have to be made for the next few weeks, just to kind of return the grid to its full strength. The resiliency and reliability, the redundancy of some of the circuits that we have. Even though we have customers back on, we still got to continue to get some of those other things done and polished up.
Doug Brown with us, City Water, Light, and Power Chief Engineer. Obviously not something that, a mayor who's month and a half in wants to have to deal with, but these types of emergencies can happen. But what kind of lessons do you think the utilities learned in all of this? And I would imagine, too, just having to deal with the levels of frustration there is with customers being without power for more than a week or so. What kind of lessons do you think CWLP's learned?
Well, and we're going to do a full debriefing and have several meetings after this to see what can we do better, because you can always do things better no matter what. So we're gonna do that. And then some of the immediate things is that there's some issues with the outage map we need to figure out, because it uses predictive software essentially, and I think there's things that we could modify with that. We can look at newer technology such as the AMI meters, but that's very costly. So there's a lot of competing priorities that the mayor, the council will have to decide on if they want to pursue something like that. There's always the ability to improve communication, those kinds of things. Are definitely on the list of things to figure out how we can do things better, and we're going to stay on top of that for sure.
And Doug, any special shout outs you want to give to your crews with City Water, Light, and Power, or some of the crews that came from outside of the area to assist in this, or maybe the customers who were patient in dealing with these outages?
There's a lot. I can't even really begin to thank, our staff, our employees, our linemen, the people in the background, the outside crews. This work is dangerous. It's, long hours, and it's very stressful. And, they really came through with, all the repairs, and really, about a week and a half. That's pretty impressive for the amount of damage that was it incurred. So, and then the customers, we did have a lot of frustrated customers, because of the outages. And the hard thing is it's really impossible to predict the length of the repair times for individual outages when there's just so many miles and miles of damage. The sheer magnitude was so wide, it was spread across the city that there was basically 500 outage locations. During a typical storm, when we have a few thousand out, we might have a few to a dozen outage repair locations that we have to do and manage. So this is basically a natural disaster, of course. Something that occurs maybe every 50 years, and utilities they just don't staff for a natural disaster like that's why they use contractors. We use mutual aid to supplement during a crisis such as this.
Well, and Doug, finally here, one thing that you talked about with some potential storms last week was how it's still fragile, right? We do have in the forecast some thunderstorms possible come Tuesday night into Wednesday. How's the infrastructure now? Is it still in a fragile position with those possible storms coming down the pike?
Well, yeah, like I said, we still have, a few weeks worth of repairs to make to the system as a whole, but it's not just our system, but it's also the weakened tree limbs and those kinds of things that, when you have a strong wind or maybe, a lot of rain, you're going to have more damage coming. But we're going to be able to stay on top of it. Hopefully there's nothing like we just had. And we can get people back on a lot faster, of course.
Doug Brown, Chief Engineer for City Water, Light, and Power, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning, and we'll keep updated with the latest, all right? We'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WS.